sense. So,
Okay, and you folks see me looking down, I'm taking notes.
and that makes sense. So, hi, Dr. Rob.
Dr. Tammy.
Not really, but thank you. So
You're
our
the
first
love
question,
doctor.
oh, I'm the recovery and healing person. I care about that. So, okay. So the first question, I put it in the answer, so you should be able to see it. Good evening. I'm the partner of problematic behavior. I am not sure if sex addiction is involved, but the behavior has been going on for some time. Excessive masturbation, porn, and perhaps sex outside the marriage with other women. How do I know if it is sex addiction or just bad behavior? When I want to talk about our relationship, my husband will respond with defensiveness and gaslighting. How do you know? Thank you. This is such a great question. This is a great starting point. So let's kick it
And
off.
I have the simplest of answers in some way, which is, what is the priority in your home? Is it for you and your husband to have a good relationship, or is it for him to look at porn? Because, a lot of the men I work with, not the men I work with, men who ask this question will generally say, well, what's the big deal? I mean, guys look at porn. And so what if I look at, and the answer is, what's a big deal is upset your wife. And so why aren't you willing to listen to it? Why aren't you willing to talk about it? Why, if you're defensive because you're ashamed, the spouse can say, I know you might be ashamed. If you are my recommendation about all this is to get into couples therapy and find a way, because this is a situation in my mind where he will have to be in a position where he can't run away from the conversation. But if I just answered your question straight on, I don't know him, I can't assess him, but excessive masturbation, porn, sex outside the marriage with other women, I will, please forgive me, Tammy, I will, once in a while, a guy will go to a bachelor party and, there'll be a stripper there, or, once in a while, somebody might, or look at porn if it's okay in their relationship. But the lying, the gaslighting, the defensiveness, the other, how is this affecting you? That's what I think about. And by the way, we have a saying, trust your gut. So if you're asking this question, I think you already know the answer. The question is he willing to get on board and work with you with it? And that's the question, because, you could take that out of this and say, if there's something going on with one of our kids or whatever, and he refuses to talk about it, well, that affects the relationship. You need to talk about it. And, as a partner, as a wife or husband or whatever, you have the right, I think of it as a right, to say, this is on my mind and I want to talk about it. And please sit down and hear me out. So the last thing I'll say is, he seems to be making this about him. When I hear the defensiveness and gaslighting, there's nothing in there about empathy or compassion for you. So if I had to write an addict script, this would meet the script. And by the way, I hope he's listening, because that would probably be helpful for him to hear it from the expert. Tammy, any other thoughts?
I have a bunch of thoughts. So one of the resources that I think would be very helpful, I put in the chat, but on the seekingintegrity.com site, on the homepage, there are two quick screen self-assessments. One is for sex and porn addiction. The other has co-occurring chemical addiction. They are not what we use for clients coming into our residential program. That is far more comprehensive. That said, count the number of yes answers, and that's a quick indicator, if there could be, something going on. I'm with Dr. Rob, the whole, the lying and defensiveness, and and you're deeming excessive. And I understand what you're saying, Dr. Rob. I get people who call in, they cheated, they went to Vegas and whatever, there's an affair. But when it's chronic, and that's what I'm hearing, excessive, there's more than one, you're suspecting things. Dr. Rob, said, trust your gut. Absolutely. Here's another option. Dr. Rob does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation, which is a conversation, but it's a consultation for the two of you with him. Yeah. But he's really good. It's done via Zoom. So he does these with literally people all over the world. But that can be really helpful at identifying the issues and guiding next steps. Often, partners realize that, there's there's a crisis, there's, like there's something going on in the relationship, and they want to get an expert's help. And he is very good at identifying issues. I've had more than one person say that they'd gone to lots of therapists over a few years, and no one was really able to pinpoint what was going on. And Dr. Rob was able to do that. Now, that does not mean that someone automatically will go, oh, I get it. Now I'm willing to do the work and change. But for you, I often say on either side of the equation, nothing changes if nothing changes. So you're here. I'm grateful you're here. You're asking questions. There's tons of support resources for you. We've got drop-in groups and webinars and work groups. I mentioned that earlier. Email me, TAMI@seekingintegrity.com, and I'll send you links to all kinds of resources. But please do consider that one-time expert consultation for the two of you. I think that would be helpful just to identify things, but hopefully some of those resources are helpful.
And just to Tammy's point, a little point, I talked to a couple in New Zealand recently. I've talked to couples in Japan and South Africa. And, because in this world, I can really counsel and challenge and question. The reason I said it's not just a conversation is I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm very pointed in what is this about? And as a spouse, what are you feeling? What are you hearing? What have you been through? I actually asked the person who's assumed to be the addict to just sit and listen some of the time. And when I ask the questions and they hear what their spouse has been through, they sit back and they say, oh, I didn't realize. You mean my children were affected? Yes, your children. Well, I always did their diaper. No, you didn't support their mother, or their father. So in any case, yes, I love doing the consults, but they're not relaxing and comfortable. They're me at my best, really challenging people on their thinking. Addicts anyway.
I was stumbling over the word, and so that's why I went.
I wasn't correcting you.
I was starting to stumble over, and I was coming up with conversation, and I was like, no, it's a consultation, and I was like, well, it's so.
I see.
But I'm so glad you clarified it. Yeah, these are, this isn't a fun time with Dr. Rob, but man, oh man, I hear consistently that the feedback and input was helpful, and even if it's like, okay, he's not going to change, what do I need to do for me? I should have mentioned this earlier. Healthy boundaries for you are for your safety, regardless of what he does or doesn't do. We've got webinars that we've done on that topic, but that's important concepts for you. So again, glad you're here. There's lots of resources. We work at making sure that there's real information, not, Dr. Rob is a world-renowned expert. He's written lots of books. He's got lots of people that he knows that have come on to the podcast that share their insights and wisdom. So we want it to be authentic. We're seeking integrity. We want to have integrity about the resources we share.
Hey, Tammy, I just want to say to the group, thank you, that this session goes fast. And I'm not on every week. So I see 43 people and 2 questions. Let me tell you, and no,
well, there's 2 more, so there's 4 total.
I have lots we can talk about, but if you don't line up, you'll be sorry and say, oh my God, I meant to ask that, and it's 2 minutes to the hour. So anyway, just to encourage.
Okay, so the next question, during individual counseling, what are some of the common reasons discovered as to why the betrayer had the affair and acted out regularly sexting women online and visiting dating websites? Thank you so much.
So I think that's a great question, because, and this is how I think about it, it doesn't matter. I don't care what the reasons are. I don't care if your mother, in treatment, if someone's in our treatment center or in the kind of therapy that really does address this, and I recommend you reach out to Tammy if you don't have a therapist. I just talked to a couple today who, honestly, they'd been in therapy for 1.5 years, couples, individuals, but they didn't get anywhere because the person was more invested in what happened to you, what was it like, and I'm sorry you went through that. And in other words, some therapists think, well, when I solve the underlying issues, the person will stop the behavior. And the reality, it's the opposite. Until someone stops the behavior, they're not going to be able to look at the other issues because they're living in shame and secrecy. And I also talked to a gentleman the other day who was going to couples therapy every day and just or once a week for 1 year, and left out the reality of what left out. He was lying all the way through. And how far can you get in couples therapy when someone isn't telling the truth? So I know this isn't an answer to your question, but I'm less interested, and I think it's going down the wrong freeway for you to even think about why. The question is, how? How is it you're not listening to me? How is it that you could do this? How is it that I don't seem to matter? How is it that, what did I want to say about this? How is it that you're acting out regularly and you don't see how that affects our relationship or me? So I'm less interested in what, and think about this to you, Kathy. I'm less interested in him and more interested in how this is affecting you and what it means to you and how it is that, and this is what addicts lack, is empathy. If anything, he's saying, oh, I didn't mean it, and I'm so sorry, and I need to look at the past, and I was really injured when I was a child. And that stuff may all be true, and I feel bad for that, but I'm more concerned about how come he isn't sitting back and saying, I wonder what she's going through. I wonder how she feels. I wonder what this is doing to her. I'm much more interested in that than anybody's history at the beginning. That's
Yeah, I'm more, how do we move forward? What do I need to do so that I'm on a different path so that I don't continue to do those problematic behaviors? And that sounds minimizing. I don't mean to, but when you're sharing, the affairs and acting out sexually, all of those things, like, yes, I know lots of people who call and they know why. And guess what? They're still acting out. So, and until and unless you stop the problematic behavior, the why, there's we do 4 to 5 hours of assessment on with the clients who are coming into our residential program, because we want to understand holistically. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism, and there's always stuff underneath it. But until you stop this, you can't address those things. People, I swear, they go running off to trauma therapy and they keep acting out. So, like, because it's triggering and it's, and all of those things. So stop the problematic behavior, have a plan for how do we move forward? What do I need to do on a daily basis to do something different? That actually brings recovery. And then, I mean, like, I had a realization, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, and I was like, oh, there's another piece of the puzzle. That didn't mean I wasn't sober the entire time. Like, I have been, and I'm sure I will learn more. I will always have awarenesses, and those are the layers, and I'm okay with that. So if I had decided early on that I needed to understand all the whys, I would have failed. I mean, there's no way I could have tolerated all of that. So
I did, hold on a second. I wrote something in the chat which I haven't posted yet, but hold on just one second, because I'm
make sure it says to everyone and not just to me.
It does. Not that I wouldn't want you to see it, Tammy, but
no, but like, it's helpful if you're sending it.
So I want you guys to see this. I think it's important. The path is simple. We're just talking to some folks today. It's a simple process. You do these groups, you talk to these people, you attend the work you need to do, and it gets better. And I'm talking to people who act out. It's not complicated. Honestly, you could read it in a book. You could. But the thing is, are you willing to do it? And this is, once you get the right direction, then you have to get on that road, and you have to get on the road for a long time. I was just talking to somebody recently who said, well, I do one of these and I do one of those a week. And I'm thinking, well, how often did you act out? Because you're acting out every day. Maybe you could find the time to do something for recovery every day. So what I mean by simple but not easy is the path is simple. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The part that's not easy is I'm willing to commit to it, to stay on it, and to follow it, especially when I don't want to. And I'll say I'll say one more thing, which is when I have a client say they don't feel like getting support, they don't feel like doing this, I think that must be the day you most need to do it, whether you want to or you're not. So anyway, thought I'd throw that out there. Go ahead, Tammy. What's our next?
No, and I agree. And but I have that all the time too. Like 90 12-step meetings in 90 days. And people are like, what? And I'm like, I'll tell you what, I had extra time when I took the time I planned, for acting out, the time I thought about acting out afterwards, all of that time, I had lots of extra time every single day. And so it really is, where are we willing to focus? So, okay.
And by the way, if you are looking for a professional, drop Tammy a note. We don't get kickbacks. She and I just probably at this point, I won't say age, know everybody who does this work on one level or another in other states and other countries. And it is TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. Tammy is one of the most amazing people in terms of calling you, getting your note on a Sunday, being right there Monday morning. So let's go.
Yes. Okay. Hi, partner here. I have been feeling a little bit like my SA partner is starting to compartmentalize me out of his life again. Should I be concerned? Am I right in understanding this is related to addiction? From SLA for context, when making creative decisions for projects I get involved with, I want to ensure that I am making the right decision from my core and not my people-pleasing tendencies before involving my partner in the creative sphere.
So Tammy, do you think you could interpret this? I think there's a bunch of things in there and I'm not sure where to start. The first part
Well,
I can do.
I was gonna say, I think I would do that because
The rest feels a little personal.
I was gonna say, and it feels like it took it out of context for me. So I'm gonna let's just deal with the first part because that's where the question is. Okay.
The answer is yes. I would be very concerned. It doesn't mean that he or she isn't, going through a rough patch with other parts of their life and kind of, I isolate, someone passes away or I lose a job, or I will isolate, I will focus on other things. I might shut you out a little bit. But if you have a history of being shut out when there's a problem, then I think I would be very, very worried. You should be concerned. Yes, this is most often related to addiction. When I do the consults, and I won't give it away in case anyone, well, I will in case any of you do them. But one of the first questions I ask, without question, to the spouse is, have you been feeling like this person's leaving you out? Have you felt like they're emotionally not distant, emotionally unresponsive, defensive when you try to ask questions? So here you are being pushed back out and probably not getting the answers that you want as to why. I would absolutely be concerned. The thing is, and honestly, Tammy can answer this, what are you going to do about it? Because we often get the question, well, how do I make the addict do this? Or how do I make the addict do that? And I don't think we can make anybody do anything. So Tammy, could you give some feedback on how maybe I can't create change, but how I can tolerate and deal with this? So I was thinking about boundaries, and I know you're very good at talking about that.
I do, and that's where I was going to go with that, is healthy boundaries. And I kind of alluded to that a moment ago, but we talk often for betrayed partners. Everybody needs healthy boundaries. I could give you a whole dissertation on that, but let's just go with, healthy boundaries are for safety. Physical safety, emotional safety, financial safety, and spiritual safety. It's what do I need, not what do I want. Like I want, all kinds of things, but what do I need? And I need to take care of me. And if my partner is not able to step into that space and brokenness and in brokenness and addiction, they're not. If they're in active addiction, until and unless they get the help to be on a different path, they're in active addiction. So it really is, what do I need to do to take care of myself, regardless of what that person is doing? And honestly, I know lots of people who stay in a relationship with someone who is in active addiction, and they have joy, they have friends, they have connections, and so that's hurtful on some level, but it isn't the whole focus of their life and all of their attention. So whatever is right for you, but it's really you taking care of you, because clearly an addict who is is early in the process, but also if they're still struggling with compartmentalization, I'm sorry, but honestly, we are so good at that, and that's how we had to live in order to be able to act out. So it is a component that is, it's part of we lie to ourselves and everyone else. And so we compartmentalize, we put up a facade and we look really good. We know on some level that we're lying to ourselves, but all that compartmentalization keeps us safe, but it doesn't. We just, that's one of the lies we're telling ourselves. So I go back to, what do you need to do to take care of you, regardless of that? And it's okay to say, I'm feeling disconnected. I will quick add this to Fanos is a check-in, and that can be useful, but it also can be, I hope you're working with a qualified professional for you. And, we talk about actions. What is this person showing you with their actions? How many 12-step meetings are they going to? How often are they seeing their therapist? What are they doing to start to make that shift? Like Dr. Rob said, the process of healing is simple, but not easy. So, but we have to take action to do it. It's not going to just magically happen by osmosis, by, listening to a podcast, even Dr. Rob's Sex, Love, and Addiction. So
Well, but it's a great podcast.
It's a great
But it's
podcast,
not going
but
to
it
cure
isn't going
you
to
unless you,
magically. Yes,
right.
exactly.
But I do hear people say, oh, now I understand. But I did want to say one
Yes.
more thing to you. And I want to say this to all you spouses. If someone has a history of this, they don't get to compartmentalize you. They don't get to shut you out. I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. I always forget that subtitle, Out of the Doghouse. And it is probably my most popular book. And we do a training in that, I think, for men.
A work group. It's an online work
Right.
group. It's not a training. But that
Right.
does go along with the doghouse, and you're going to train her. So no,
Tammy,
it's not that.
don't
It's
say
an
that because,
online
well,
work
I'll tell
group.
you why I don't say that in a minute, but it is personal. But I will say that you spouses are, I hear a lot of questions like, my partner's a sex addict, but they stopped talking about it. I don't think they're telling me the truth. They're compartmentalizing. I wrote Out of the Doghouse because if you want to maintain your relationship and you're an addict, you don't get to be defensive. You don't get to hide things. You don't get to say, why are you bugging me about this again? Your job, if you want to regain trust, is to say, for example, if I am an addict and I used to act out after work and I come home 20 minutes late and I have groceries in my arm and you say, I know you were at it again, you're 20 minutes late. It's not my job to say, but look at all these groceries and the freeway was busy. My job is to say, I wasn't doing that today, but I can understand how you might feel that way. Doghouse is written because if I have been acting out and hurting you, I am in the doghouse. When Tammy's dog hurts, when they soil your house, they have to have some kind of consequence. And what the consequence is for a lot of dogs is you don't get to stay in the house now. You have to go outside and sit in your doghouse or sit out for a while because you've done a bad thing. And it's very simplistic in that way. So yeah, I don't understand. I do understand, but I think sometimes spouses. So I wrote down something else, which is how you address it is interesting and important too. If I said to my spouse, I'm feeling really uncomfortable and I think you're hiding things again and I don't know what to do and this is overwhelming me and you won't even talk about it, what do I do? I think that's very different than, I know you're at it again and I want to know. And because automatically, well, no matter what's going on, I'm going to shut down. And because I feel like I'm being treated badly. So I'm not saying you have to do it perfectly, but I think you have to come from a place of curiosity rather than, what's the other word, Tammy? Curiosity or you did this.
Well, yeah,
Condemnation.
yeah. So
Right.
our mutual friend, Kristen Snowden, did a webinar and she uses the language, the story I'm telling myself. So the story I'm telling myself when you're 20 minutes late is that your behavior is you're
Right.
acting out, like that's different than Dr. Rob, you came in 20 minutes late. I know you're acting out, that confrontation, accusatory, all of that, and it may be, the same answer that Dr. Rob's, yeah, I can understand why my past behavior would make you think that. I stopped at the grocery store and I'm happy to tell you, what happened, if you are open to hearing that. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to slow the process down rather than getting defensive or accusatory, because then I call it the negative two-step dance of like, this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens and nothing changes, so.
And to Tammy's point, I want to add, and I think this is really hard to do when you're upset, and I remind myself of this, but it's not like everything's perfect in my relationship, but when something's going wrong and I'm upset about it, I really consciously try to say, I'm feeling disappointed. I'm frustrated. I'm scared, because I really want you to hear this. Write this down. Basic therapy lesson. No one can argue with how you feel. I'm disappointed. I'm angry. I'm scared. No one can say, no, you're not, or I didn't. If you say, well, you did this or you did that, then they get to say, well, no, I didn't. So no to all of you, as much as you want to say, I can't believe this is going on. Look what you've been doing. I know you're hiding it. What you really have to come to is how it makes you feel. I don't know what's going on, but I feel disconnected. I feel like I'm being backed away from. It makes me very sad. That is how you will at least have the best option of being heard, because there's nothing to argue with. Tammy says, I'm sad. No, you're not. She's sad. It's her truth. So anyway, it's always I feel rather than you did, if that
Yes,
helps, if you
but
can.
an addict it couldn't go, it's your fault that you're sad, or
Right.
it's what, yeah. So
That's
they're
true.
still going to try to blame shift. So
But
we've
if
got
they
more
do
questions.
that, if they say, well,
Yes.
you're always sad, or you're always, well, then you
Yeah.
know something. And I will say
Yes,
again and again and
exactly.
again, why isn't it the priority for me to attend to your unhappiness and your fear rather than to defend myself and say, well, I want to just leave me alone? Why is it doing it when you know that the answer to doing it is leave me alone, as opposed to, gee, you seem concerned, I want to hear more about that, or wow, you seem really concerned. In other words, when I am focused on you and your pain and your concerns rather than saying leave me alone, then I'm headed in the right direction. I do need to say one more thing, which is the simplest things matter. So if I say to you, I'm going to take the garbage out in the morning, and then you come home and it isn't out, you're going to say to me, I thought you said you would do it. Oh, well, I forgot. Well, if you forgot that, what else have you forgotten? That's just the garbage. Or if I lie about it and say, oh yeah, they already picked it up and it's not true. If I'm lying about something as simple as that, well, what else am I lying about? And this is why the person in recovery has to say what they mean and mean what they say, even in the face of an unhappy partner. And that's very hard for us. We want everybody to be happy and leave us alone. Okay, let's move.
The next one is, I'm the betrayed spouse. First D-Day was in 2012 and some relapses in 2022. My SA husband has been on his 12-step programs daily, but his dry, drunk, emotional outbursts and gaslighting and hidden Facebook account, turning off GPS, etc., shows me SA behavior through, though he is sober, maybe. I ended our relationship, currently working out assets to be split. Is there still a chance in the 2-year separation for him to change? What to look for? He has little empathy. He's a victim.
Well, I don't know you and I don't know your circumstances. And so I can't directly answer you and your relationship, but I can say that what I don't hear is a desire to be back with you. What I hear is, I think that there's a grief issue here, and it's your grief issue, which is, I hope, I wish, we're separated, we're divorcing, we're looking at finances, we don't a two-year separation. I mean, I think there's an obvious truth here that would be very hard. It's still kind of like, is there something I can do to avoid the pain that I'm feeling? And by the way, and Tammy knows I've said this, and I'm going to give an extreme. Women who are abused, who are hit, and when they finally get out and they get themselves together, they will say, well, how come I still have feelings for him or her or him? How is it that I can still care about them when they did this to me? And the truth is that once we're deeply attached to someone and we care about them, our feelings for them are not going to ever fully go away. However, acting on them, hoping and dreaming on them, you have to pay attention to what's happening, not what's feeling. And this is all the way through recovery, is what is this person doing, not what are they saying? And for you too, what are they doing and how are they acting in this set of circumstances, rather than sort of wishes and hopes? So my hope for you is that you'll join some of the Betrayed Partners groups, that you'll consider the Great Partners work group, and get some healing for you, because I don't see the kind of hope here that I would want in order to think this is going to change. Is there, and especially the victim part, how could you do this to me? And well, you know why you did it to him. So Tammy, thoughts, feedback?
Yeah, well, you mentioned grief, and Debbie McCrae did a great webinar, on a 2-part webinar on grief. It's on our previously recorded webinars on our website, and that's a really good one because it's not linear. It's not like I went through this stage and now I'm going to be through this stage and then it's all going to be better. Like Dr. Rob said, there's always going to be, those feelings and carings and, and moments where you go, oh, I wish that person was here or whatever. It's easy to forget the pain, which I hear clearly in what you shared. So, I think be kind to yourself, take care of you, healthy boundaries for you, connection with people who are on this journey, like the drop-in groups, etc. All of those are solid, and just understand it's going to take time for you to heal, from this as well.
Hey, Tammy, I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean to bug you, but when you talk about like Eddie so and so or Deb so and so, and they did this great thing, I'd really appreciate it, because you're absolutely right, and those are the right things. Throw it up in the chat, because people, or even our website, which is
Yes,
above.
I will. But
I know
yeah,
when
I
you're in the
mean,
moment, and Tammy is the princess, I
I
would
get
say
lots of
queen,
people
of
reaching out and
resources.
asking, and I'm happy to help because
And you
we
know,
have zillions,
Tammy, one of the things that we
zillions.
talk about a lot is people will ask for resources. My spouse is doing this, or this is happening to me. And then we'll check in back in, like, how are you doing, or what's going on? And can you help? And it's like they never read the things that Tammy sent. And it's either someone's so upset or so. And it's interesting. I do a consultation, and literally at the end, my job is to say, here are some things I think you should do. Tammy will, because Tammy's job, I will send you the resources. And I'll tell Tammy that. I don't tell them the story, but I tell her what she needs to send. And she'll say, I sent that already. And it's kind of like, well,
You would
why
be
weren't
amazed at how often this happens. It's a
that
little
you
challenging.
resend? And people, so I do recommend, please reach out to TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. And she is very excited about all the resources that we have. There aren't a lot of folks who have not only the internal resources, but know where to refer and send. But for some reason, when you ask, you don't always follow through.
Yes,
And
but
we're
please,
doing our best.
please, honestly, I give like I just did in the chat. Here are videos. Here are podcasts, and I'll add a little bit more. Like I give you the link, so it would be a joy to me if you would like. I honestly take some time and send those emails. So it would be really fantastic if I'm throwing a lifeline. Take the life ring, right? Okay,
This is simple but not easy. Just
right.
follow
I know.
through.
I know.
No,
It
I'm
is what
saying to
it is.
you, for
Yeah,
them,
yeah. I know.
you're
I
laying
know.
out the road. It's simple, but then people have to do it, which is the
Yes.
harder part.
Yes.
Oh, and let me
Okay.
say one more
No
thing. When Tammy
judgment. I'm
makes
not
these,
judging. Yeah. So,
well, I'm judging. Get to
well,
work. Um,
I'm,
I will say this, that what was I going to say about you? Um, uh, well, go ahead. Why don't we keep going? I'm just thinking of
okay.
something I
We
want to
got
say
lots
about
to, yeah.
this.
Okay. So this one, here's a question. I would love to, this is clearly a partner. I would love to sign up for a one-time 2-hour session with Dr. Rob, but when I give my husband Dr. Rob's name, I'm afraid he will not agree to have the call. So I honestly get this a lot. So I'm going to start with this one and you can tag on. But
No, I'm not sure I have an answer. You're the person
okay,
to answer
yeah,
this.
no, I get this a lot. Oh, I'm afraid he will. I was like, well, then you're stuck. You are absolutely stuck. So here's often it's our relationship is we're really struggling. I visualize having a relationship with you for the duration, but we're in a crisis. I want us to have the best opportunity to navigate this, and Dr. Rob is uniquely qualified to help us. So I want to schedule this, and he needs both of us to participate in this. So you can reach out to me, but honestly, it is best for both of you. Dr. Rob won't do it with just one of you. If you're in a relationship, because he needs to have
Right.
that information. He needs to have both sides of this. So it is super helpful. But here's the deal. If fear of him not being willing, I mean, that's some really important data for you of like, he's not willing to do anything. Like Dr. Rob said earlier, it's like, he's not willing to do something for the relationship.
Right.
Nothing gets better. I go back to my negative 2-step, this is what keeps happening. We keep doing this negative 2-step, so until something changes, it won't change. And addiction does progress. So things get worse. There's more negative consequences. So at some point, I mean, I think that's a pretty clear answer, and that to me would be okay. I'm gonna bring my boundaries in tighter because that person is not willing to be on a relationship road with me.
And I want to remind you again, it's not about telling them what to do. If this spouse says, I don't want to be on that call, I mean, I think your fear is, what if they say no? Well, if they say no, then you say, well, then I've got to, you need to sleep in another bed. I want to sleep alone, or I don't feel safe. I think I'll stay at my sister's for a while, whatever it is you may need, or, make your, whatever it is. It's not about telling them what to do. You can ask. If they don't respond, as sad as that is, then you have to say, well, how do I take care of myself? If they're not willing to do this simple thing for the relationship, just make sure you go to the right therapist, or, you're welcome to come see me.
Yes. Okay. So the next question is, I feel like my husband has either either has to be an SA or a narcissist. We are in crisis with being 3 weeks post the latest discovery. He said, not everyone that looks at porn is an SA. That's true. I asked him, what's the difference? He said, well, the SA can't control it. So I asked, do you think you could have controlled it? He said, I think so. So I said, well, I'm giving you the grace as an SA, and if you are not, then I have no grace for you. Then he is just mean, as he has already agreed with no porn. I am so angry.
Well, there's a lot here, so let me just
Yes.
speak to narcissism briefly. I know it's in the media. Everyone has something to say about it. There are books about it. Don't marry a narcissist. They're selfish. They're, whatever they are. And I'll say a couple of things. One is that all addicts are narcissistic in the process of addiction, because if I want my heroin, I'm going to find the money for it. And I'm going to do it. And I may not come home. I may take money out of the college fund, but I'm going to find. So if you think about someone who says, me first, I'm going to do what I want. I don't care what the consequences are, and leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it. That is narcissism. But if somebody gets into recovery from addiction and they turn around and say, I see that I did these things, and let me see how I can make an amends, how I can clear this up. I was absolutely wrong. Let me work 2 jobs to put the money back in the college fund. You will often see that narcissistic behavior tempered by these simple but not easy things to do, because that's what the process does. The reason I say all this is, a lot of us are narcissistic. It's a trait that comes out of some of the issues we did grow up with. Tammy would tell, well, I don't know if she'd say it, but I would absolutely say I have some very narcissistic traits, but I'm aware of them. And what the last thing I was going to say is, the reality is, in all these years of seeing people, and I have seen hundreds of individuals, men in particular, the true narcissistic person who's completely that, and I would not feel a whole lot of hope for, is very rare. People are selfish. People are focused on themselves. People have a hard time taking criticism. People think they run the world, and they have a lot of narcissistic traits. But I think my field far over diagnoses. A real narcissist is not particularly functional. And by the way, Tammy, I did see someone recently, it doesn't matter who it was or where they are, and I actually do think this person was so narcissistic that I don't know there is hope for this relationship, because it is all about defending myself, and there's no opening at all for what we might need as a couple. And sometimes, it doesn't matter, actually. What matters is, how are they behaving? How are they? You can put a label on it, but what difference does it make? The truth is, you can say that they're blue instead of green, but if blue people, I don't want to go there. But if they're unwilling to work on it and help, then what difference does it make what the issue is? So, Tammy, can you speak to the rest of it, or help me understand
Oh
the
yeah,
next
no,
part?
I was like, honestly, thought that was kind of a brilliant exchange. I was like, okay, you said you could stop it, so now, yes, so
Right.
like I actually was like, oh, well done. Kind of the trap was laid, and he fell right into it. But because I could have controlled this, well, why didn't you then? So yeah, so at the beginning of the chat, I had put the self-assessment. It's on our homepage, and that's a quick little self-screen. But I'm going to go back to, I hear your anger. I get it, that he is not taking this at all seriously. So healthy boundaries for you. Absolutely. And what do you need to do to take care of you? I will quick mention, I mentioned it at the beginning of this, that we have a current betrayed partner online work group that started last week, Wednesday. Often people miss one group. There is room. I would be happy to help you. We'll start another one February 19th, but that could be really helpful for you. It's healthy boundaries. It's what sex addiction is and isn't, how to communicate, all of those things.
So, Tammy, put the
Psychoeducation that can
link
be
into the
helpful.
betrayed partners.
I did.
Okay, good. I'm going
Yes.
to bug you
So
about that.
yes. Yeah. I think
There was
I
one more
did all
thing
that.
about
Yes,
this,
please.
which is, he said, I said, well, I was giving you grace, and if you are not, then I have no grace for you. And then he's mean. Why would, again, I want to say to all of you, if I have harmed you, if I have a problem, if I have acted on that problem and really caused you pain, how in the world can I get, well, I know how, but how in the world can I be mean to you and angry with you and defensive when I already know what I've done to you, and you're just coming back and saying, are we okay? The answer is, I want to talk about that more. Why are you feeling unsafe? Rather than leave me alone. Okay. What do we got?
Okay, so I'm putting, so there's a porn addiction 101, if you know, because again, it's another good opportunity. He can go learn and why he doesn't have porn addiction. I think he does, but anyway. Next question. Why, here's another why question. Why would the betrayer who has repeatedly flirted with women in private chats hands me a piece of paper, and when I ask what is this phone number, jokingly says it's my girlfriend's number?
Well, that's cruel. And, I used to think a long time ago that lots of things were funny that really weren't. I used to think that a joke was maybe saying something that was wrong with someone because I thought it was funny. Or so I don't know let me say this. To everyone who acts out or causes pain in any way, the question for me is always intent. Did that person mean to hurt you, or was it a result of some problem they had? Did they mean to cause trouble, or is it because they didn't realize how troubling that was? I used to say, someone would be at dinner and I'd find something funny about someone and I would say it and everyone would laugh uncomfortably. My intent wasn't to hurt them. My intent was, I thought that would be funny. So what I would be curious about is, what is this person's intent? Because to me, it would be to push you away and tell you, oh, well, you're just making stuff up. So here's a number, go ahead and call it. But it doesn't feel like, there's no empathy there. There's no compassion there. There's no caring. And as Tammy would probably say, what solution is going on here? Do I hear this person's in therapy? Do they're going to 12-step groups? Are you two working on this? Because the word that comes up for me is cruel. I think this is cold, and no one what the reason. I don't know what his intent is, but this is cruel. So, Tammy, what are your thoughts?
I was just healthy boundaries for you. I mean, that person, because you said has repeatedly done, that's what you know about.
Right.
There's more, and you aren't saying he's really trying, and to get solid recovery, and here's all the things he's doing. This sounds like, oops, he accidentally handed you a phone number, a piece of paper that had a phone number on it, and he made a cruel, dismissive of you too. It's like, oh, whatever, so I think for you, just I would really get the support that you need in order
Mm-hmm.
to take care of you, because clearly he's not. So
I just want to say one more thing, which is, this is a great opportunity to say how you feel. You
mhm.
know, I can't believe you keep giving me those notes is not the thing that's going to help. What will help, if anything, is I am so hurt and disappointed when that is your response. I feel like I'm not cared about. I feel like our relationship isn't important, and I'm so disappointed. That is the way through to learn, because you never know if somebody's just responding to you defensively, because it's like, the wagging finger. And again, I think someone who cares about who you are, regardless of what they're going through, can hear that it makes you sad or uncomfortable or it's pain. And this is painful. This would really devastate me. Go ahead, Tammy.
The
This is
next
an
question is a great
interesting.
question, and yeah, it's a short one, but it's lots. What are the signs that an SA is in recovery?
Okay, I'm going to go use the restroom for a minute because I'm getting older. Do you mind starting that and I will
I
answer?
love this question, so I'm happy to. Okay, so I talk often, people just not doing the behaviors is abstinence. That's just not acting out. And then there's sobriety. So that's kind of the next phase of things. And if somebody's actively doing 12-step, working the steps, not just warming a seat in a meeting, doing our drop-in groups, doing our online work groups, working with their qualified professional, not just a generalist therapist. So there's accountability, you will start to see things changing. And like Dr. Rob used the out of the doghouse example of, like, if I say I'm taking out the trash, you're taking out the trash. Now, don't get panicked, but honestly, recovery really, is a 2 to 5 year process. But that doesn't mean that you won't be seeing change along the way. And even if somebody, like I said I was going to take out the trash this morning, and I completely slipped my mind. I apologize, for doing that. Or I lied to you when I said I took out the trash, and I quick went and took out the trash because I was worried about your reaction or something like that's a change. So even if there was a lie in the moment, but I've come and I've changed and said, here's what happened, and I'm taking accountability for it, you're just going to start to go, oh, that's different. So you will start to see change. A dry drunk, and we use that kind of terminology, is someone who is abstinent, just not acting out, but hasn't done anything to really change. The person a moment ago said just, angry and mean. Yeah, lots of times, because they don't have the maladaptive coping mechanism of using their, addictive behavior, whatever form that takes. And they don't have the tools of recovery, which teaches us, like Dr. Rob has said, it's simple, but it's not easy, but we can learn to live life differently. It's such a worthwhile journey, but you will see, and I think it's for partners, it's like absolutely trust your gut. For addicts, understand it's a journey, and, every day we have a daily reprieve based on what we do today. We're not resting on our laurels of what we did 3 weeks ago, or I went to treatment or whatever. We have a daily reprieve, and our joy and our gratitude and all of the good things are dependent on what we're doing today. Again, not, prior work, because we forget the big red flags are not doing the work that we need to do in order to stay on the journey. Scott Brassert and I were talking the other day on a webinar, probably, but we both have been in recovery, for a longer time, and we still both go to 12-step meetings. I still do my daily meditation. I do what I need to do because I'm so desperate to hang on to this, because I have a good life, even though life circumstances, can be crummy at times. Still, this is so much better than the way I was living before. So, okay, anything to
I
tag
did this
onto
thing
that?
again that you hate, which is I put some things up there, which is this is to answer your question. The person's taking responsibility. They're not being defensive. They're being honest. They have some insight into what's going on with you. And most of all, you can see them taking actions. To me, that is the number one sign. Because recovery, and let me just say, recovery is not, and Tammy mentioned dry drunk. If I'm an alcoholic, I can stop drinking, but I'm not in recovery. Recovery is these things: taking responsibility for my drinking, understanding how it affected you, being honest. Yes, I was drunk at that party, and going to 12-step meeting, AA, and working with the people who are there, and hopefully therapy. And it is not about recovery; is about what you see this person doing. And I say this to a lot of addicts: get a piece of paper. Write every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, put it in a line, put it on your refrigerator, and show your spouse. Monday, I'm attending this group. Tuesday, I'm going to therapy. I just joined one of their works groups, and I do that on Thursday. And don't leave your spouse saying, well, did you do this or you did that? Did you do that? You should be able to say to them, I'm doing the things on there. If you have that on your refrigerator and your spouse wonders what's going on, if it's 4 o'clock, they'll know that you're in that group. And if you're not, then they're not going to trust you. And let me tell you what is the bottom line about all of this that hurts spouses most is the lying, the dishonesty, the lack of trust. There is a crack in the relationship that is really profound, that is hard to get over, which is when you walk out that door. I used to think that you had my back, that you would do anything to make sure I was okay. And now I don't trust that when you go out the door, you're going to be doing things to respect and take care of us. Trust is the most meaningful thing. And if people aren't doing these things as an addict, they're not trustworthy. Gaslighting you, telling you it's a no big deal, why are you bugging me again? That does not restore trust. So anyway, it's action, action, action. Go ahead, Tammy.
Well, the next question ties nicely into this. I'm the partner of an SA. I had just one disclosure a year ago, and my husband is speaking with a therapist about doing another disclosure after acting out during the year. We are in the middle of a separation, but when I ask him how he is taking care of himself, he replies, listening to podcasts. Is that enough for some addicts?
I think you should start this question,
Okay.
Tammy.
I'm going to say no. He acted. You have your answer. You know this. He acted out during the year while you're separated. So no, like I say this, I love Dr. Rob's podcast. I really do. I love the previously recorded webinars. I think that those are all good 24/7 options that you can plug in. but there's zero accountability with this. He is, this is a daily reprieve. He's not doing things on a daily basis where he's accountable to someone. The story he's telling himself is that I can go do these things because we're separated, and she doesn't know. So I think this. No, this is not enough for him to change. Doing another disclosure, maybe, but I think it would be interesting. What is the point of that if there's no plan for you guys to move forward? What are you looking for from that? You already know. It's that he's acted out. He's an essay. He's done a disclosure. You're going to do another one. What are you looking for from that? If you're looking for honesty, you probably won't get it because he's still lying to himself. So I kind of wonder, like, what do you need to do to make a decision whether this is a safe person to move forward with or not?
I wanted to say something about the podcast. And so, of course, I put something up. That's the name of it, Sex, Love, and Addiction. We have almost 1.5 million followers. But the reason I bring this up is simple. To me, books, videos, podcasts, they're the doorway. They are the door that gets opened, and you listen to the podcast. Oh, yeah, there's a problem. Or, oh, wow, there's some things I can learn. It opens the door. But the work is when you go through it. The podcast for me is I'll hear somebody say, oh, I listened to your podcast, and then I saw you on YouTube, and then I read your Wikipedia, whatever, and I decided to do stuff with you. That's great. But we decided to get to work, or whatever that is, or we heard about this thing because we went through that doorway. We got these things, and that led us to. So listening to the podcast means I've opened the door. It doesn't mean I've walked through it. And I do think listening to podcasts, I listen to podcasts as one way to say, I don't really want to do any of this. By the way, how do you know he's even listening to it? Would be one of my questions. Okay, go ahead, Tim.
So the next one is, well, and to your point with the podcast, I put the link in the chat so you can click on that link and it'll take you to that directly.
It's pretty good.
Yes, it is. And there's multiple on there. There's Sex, Love, and Addiction. There's also Overcoming Betrayal and Addiction, which is another one.
That's us.
Okay, that's us. But yeah. Okay, I'm a partner and my husband continues to deny anything is going on. I feel that I have to do espionage work to try to find evidence of his unfaithfulness, even though I have seen the intense masturbation that he never did before prior to the 34 years of marriage.
Well, a couple of things I want to say is I don't believe it. I'm sorry, but you don't just start. I never did this till we were married. To me, that's like saying it's your fault. Every person that I've worked with, including some folks I talked to just the other day, it started long before we met. And I think this is a way to say to the partner, well, I didn't have a problem before I met you. Trust me. This person, if they're intensely masturbating on a regular, but they had a problem. They just never told you about it. And I think it's one thing that's really hard for you spouses, and it would be for me, is you don't know this. You marry someone and you didn't know their truth or what was really going on. And then you get to years and years, and all of a sudden you find out, oh my God, I don't even know this person, because they didn't have the courage to say, I've been struggling with something for a very long time. And also doing detective work, that's just to make you feel comfortable. That's what every spouse does. You are the best read. You've listened to every podcast. You've seen every video. You've joined all the work groups because you want to know. And I will say, and by the way, you've been through all of our emails and you've gone through all of our texts and you've looked at every single check we've ever written. And here's why. I think a lot of addicts say, well, they want to leave me and they want the proof that there it is. The reason and what they don't understand, the addicts, is that I think you partners are looking at all of that to see a reason to stay. Can I handle this? Can we get through this? How bad is it? And I think that's why you do so much research, is you're trying to figure out if you can. And a lot of these questions, by the way, how can we move forward? What do I need to see that they're in recovery? These are requests for people to be able to stay in a relationship, not to leave them. You want to say more about this, Tammy? It's so sad.
The only one thing I wondered about, and this happens like Parkinson's medication, there's hypersexuality can happen with that. So if there has been a medical change or a change in medication, check that out. But like that would be my only caveat.
One more thing.
Hmm.
One of the support groups that we have for women is called, and Tammy, I have to explain why, is called the Old Ladies Posse, and it is for women. Well, I can say they came together and they said to us, we need a support group that is not for young women who have kids at home. We've been married for all these years, and or at least aren't in a new marriage. You know, we've been married for 25 years or 40 years, or and I've just found out how bad this is. And I need to talk to other women who are my age who are going through this. And I think, Tammy, this would be a great person to go to the Old Ladies. I hate that name, but
Well,
they
they
named it.
they asked for it, exactly, and they wanted it not just to be a support; they wanted accountability. I sub in on that. Occasionally, Susan Anderson hosts it. She also hosts the Moving On Alone. So for those of you that are considering moving on alone, have been left, or are thinking about it, that is another Betray Partner group, and we also have the men's group for that as well. So there's a separate one for men on Fridays now. So
I promise we can answer one more question, but I just want to say that again, these groups are free, just like this. There is no, when Tammy says go do, other than the work groups, which are paid, these groups are free. And I think we do, you'll have to tell me 14 a week or something like that. And they're not like a 12-step program in the sense that they're monitored. And so someone who is a therapist is volunteering. Now, Tammy found 14 or 20 therapists who were willing to volunteer their time to oversee these groups to make sure that they were safe. And they are there and they don't necessarily engage. Sometimes they do, but they're really there to make sure that everyone is treating each other with respect and they're talking about the things that need to be talked about. So I made an agreement with Tammy. If we're, and my other folks I work with, if we're going to do this, I want to give 90% of what we do away. And you guys say we're so generous, and I think we are. The other side of it is maybe a few of you come to our treatment center. Maybe a few of you do things, go to a work group that is paid. And those of you who do that, honestly, and you're welcome to join us and pay, you pay for our salaries, but you also pay for all this 90% of the work that we do for free. And so please understand these recommendations are not come in and join a group and pay, 90% of the things are free. And it says on the website, we charge for this, we don't charge for that. Anyway, let's do the last one, Tammy, even though it's dinner
okay,
time.
and there's a whole bunch of other ones that we won't get to tonight. I'm
I
sorry.
know.
So
That's why I
okay,
said start early.
yeah, yes, I discovered my husband had a 3-month affair 3.5 years ago, and he ended it. We did our own informal discovery process when he revealed all the facts about the affair. I saw many, many texts of the
Ooh.
explicit details. He refused counseling. Then 2 years later, in 2023, I discovered he had an affair again with the same woman. He ended it again. This time I got details in trickle truth fashion. I think I finally heard all the facts. He also has been acting out sexually online with women and has stopped that too. What is the best way forward? Should we each do our individual counseling first, then couples therapy after, or should we do couples therapy first? In the last 3 weeks, he started listening to many YouTube videos daily on his own, and I see his attitude shift in a major way for the better. He is agreeing to therapy.
So first of all, go to the right therapist. If you're going to spend the money, make sure they at least know what they're doing. Remember, it's about how and not why. But this is going to be a not fun answer. He's lying. I don't think he ever ended the affair, ever. I think it's been going on the whole time. I think you were told, explicit term, whatever, to shut you up. It's like, okay, here's everything. Now you know it. I'm so sorry. But I don't think he ever stopped, ever, ever, ever. And then the online stuff, he says he stopped. He said a lot of things. He said he stopped before. And then you found out why would you think the affair ever ended? Why would you think he stopped being sexual online? Why would you believe any of this? So personally, I think you going to some support groups, the Betray Partners group, and really learning a way of looking at this so that you can be safe. I don't think that the two of you going into counseling or the two of you doing couples therapy, I think you need to take care of yourself. And there need to be some limits here. I don't know what they are, but what are you willing to do in this relationship to protect yourself? And here's a really great question, and I hate saying this. Have you gotten STD tested? Have you made sure that in all this lying and cheating that he hasn't given you herpes, that he hasn't given you HPV or worse? What if you don't know everything, and I promise you, you don't, do you know this person? You know, he says, oh, I don't know. I know she would never do that. Well, how does he know? He's having an affair with her. Maybe she's going on with other people, and men do this too. So in any case, I think all bets are off. I wouldn't believe any of this. I think you have to set boundaries to protect yourself. I would suggest getting STD testing so that you know you're safe. And then you need a lot of sisters in recovery to help you get through this, because what I see is so much hope for this relationship that you're accepting lies that just aren't true. And then when you find something, it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, but that ended a couple of years ago. That's because you found something, not because it really ended. What addicts do is we say, we will tell you only as much as you know and nothing else. So if we can get away, if we get caught and we can get away, well, it was just this, but I stopped a year ago, that's to shut you up when we actually don't want you to know, because maybe most of the time we want to keep doing what we're doing. So I am so sorry, Kathy, that this is my answer to you, but I just don't think that this is stopped and then started. And this is all a big lie. And the question is, how can you take care of yourself to get through what I would see as a betrayal of the entire relationship? Don't believe a word he says. I'm so sorry, but you know, you've been lied to enough. So
and the miraculous, oh, he's watching YouTube videos and 3 weeks later his attitude has changed in a major way. I don't buy that at all. He may have just gotten better at, showing
looking good.
Yes, exactly. I was like, that's exactly what it is. Like, no, he's not done anything for accountability. You've had, I call it vomit disclosures, when you get stuff thrown at you, but there's no safety. There's no, like there's a whole process. Dr. Rob does a peer case consultation group weekly, and one of the most talked about topics with the professionals who are trying to do this work is formal therapeutic disclosure. So a trickle discovery, and now you know all the facts. No, you don't, and nor should you. That's not the point. You're never supposed to know the gory details, because that gets stuck in your head. It's a deeper well for you to come out of with the trauma. You need more help for that. So please slow this all down. Yes, individual therapists, but I put the online assessment. That would be a good starting point. Him getting thoroughly assessed by a qualified professional to understand this is way more complicated than, a couple of affairs and, some sexting and things like that. So
I want to add one thing, which is when I do the consultations and I'm talking to a couple, and let's say it's a man and a woman, and the man is the person who's been acting out. And he's like, well, I've really, gotten motivated, and I read your book, and I've started listening to podcasts, and now I'm here. And the question for me with the spouse is, who found the podcasts? Who found the books? Who made this appointment? Because if his attitude is shifting, then how is he taking responsibility for change? Why are you asking, should we do? I bet you would make the individual counseling appointment. I bet you would make the couples. How much can you spouses do? And then you have to sit back and say, what are they doing to create change, or are they not? It's simple, but they have to actually go down the road and do the work. And the last thing, please, spouses, and with all due respect to addicts, you have to trust our behavior and not the things we say. So with that, I'll say, I'm going to go to dinner.
I don't blame you. And again, come back next week, ask your questions early so we get to them. There's other resources Dr. Rob mentioned. There's different webinars and different webinars and drop-in groups throughout the week. Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com if I can answer questions or point resources towards you. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rob. I appreciate it.